Hello, everybody. Hello. My name is Tyson Green, and I'm your MC for tonight's show. Tonight could be the turning point for you. I'm so glad to be on episode number 7. And if you guys are new here, please tell me where you guys are from, because I'd love to see where you guys are from, because we've had last show on episode 6. We had people from all over the globe, people in New Zealand, people in Europe. It was quite amazing to see all the people from around the world really coming together for this show. And if you guys are coming from the other episodes and you guys are a regular, please tell me that you guys are here, because I love to see you guys in the chat. And I just like seeing your guys' faces. So to kind of go over how you guys can ask questions to Doug, because that's kind of like the main concept of the show. It's the turning point. You guys are supposed to come on the show and have this nice turning point. So how to ask questions. So how we've been doing it is we're going to take comments and questions from the comment sections of YouTube and Facebook. If you want to come on to the show and ask Doug and the special guest, Jay, a question, there's going to be a link around 8:30 that you guys can click and come on to the show. It might be put out a little bit early before that, so you guys can come on and get comfortable and talk to Aaron, which is amazing. And then if you guys want an anonymous question, we've actually made a Google form that is Aaron's going to put in the chat right now, where you guys can submit an anonymous question if you guys want. And then we will be monitoring it throughout the whole show and then bringing questions to Doug live on the show. All right. And then really please share this show right now. You never know who might help, and it's just a little button. So if you guys could press share on this post right now, if you're on YouTube or on Facebook, just share it to your profile. It's never know who you might help. Cool. Awesome. So now to introduce you to Doug, if you have not met him. Doug's life started with abuse and has turned it into an abundance. Now he's on a mission to show others and how you can do the same. Doug and I created this show because he wanted a platform to reach a lot of people and help them get unstuck fast. Doug discovered that the turning point can happen very fast for you, and it can actually quite be simple. Doug spent years trying to figure out how to get ahead, and it's really hard to take a look and took way too long. He doesn't want you to have that for you. There's a better way. So tonight could be the turning point for you to get around. So let me bring him on right now for you guys. Doug?
Hey, Tyson.
How you doing?
Good, buddy. How are you?
Good. I'm just seeing
You're getting really good at opening up this show. You're like in charge and in control.
Hey, thank you. I know a little practice, but it's fun being here every night, every Thursday, So
yeah, no, you bring such a great energy. We get such great feedback on Tyson and his energy and his attitude. So I'm so glad. I'm glad you're here. And this is just Tyson's show, and he just tells me what to do. So, but it's fun. We're having a good time with it. Well, listen, thanks for chiming in again. Put your comments in the chat if you're on Facebook. Put a comment and let us know you're here. Debbie, hey, John, good, Chad, Idaho. And same thing on YouTube. We're watching the comments. You can see them coming up on the screen. There's Nure. Nure was here last week. Nure, my dear, how are you?
It's really nice to see her again.
Good last week. What a great show. If you didn't see last week's show, go to YouTube or go into my Facebook and you can watch last week's show. It was really, really cool. So anyway, I'm excited to be here every Thursday night. This is really fun, and it's very, very meaningful for me. And I was thinking about this show a little earlier, Tyson.
Oh.
And if you'd said to me a couple of years ago, hey, Doug, you're going to do a live broadcast all around the world, and you're going to be talking about God, I would have thought you're out to lunch. So I'm nervous and I'm excited. This show has been on my heart and mind for quite a while, and my friend Jay, who's our guest tonight, Jay Whitelaw, he's a big reason for that and a big part of it. And him and I started talking and said, hey, I got this idea for a show. I got a lot of ideas. I got a lot of topics on my list of things that are on my mind of what I want to speak to and what I want to share with people. And again, the goal of the show, like with Tyson's intro, the goal of the show is to cause a turning point for you. I was on the phone with somebody today. I think they're watching tonight actually, and what I was trying to do is really just disturb and disrupt the way that he was thinking. because he's locked into a way of thinking, and he's got a perception about him, about his story, about his experiences, etc., about his current situation. And I just try to cause a turning point, just get you to look in a different direction and go, let's go that way. And I learned that you can do that very, very quickly. I was stuck for a long, long time. And so I wanted to do this show because I want to share with you the experiences that I've had, not only my own experiences, but the experience I've had in working with other people and getting to know other people. And Jay tonight is one of those people. And anyway, we're going to have a really good time tonight. I met Jay. He actually called me. I didn't know him. I got a message from a friend, and she said, "Hey, could you help a friend of mine? He'd like to reach out to you." I said, "Sure, have him text me." And so Jay texted me, and he had a message and said, "I could use some help with something. Would you be available?" I go, "Sure, I'd be pleased to." He said, "Are you available this weekend?" I said, "Sure." I said, "How about I come over today?" And so I went over to his house on a Saturday afternoon, and that's where it all began. For me, Jay will recall, I call it the Eeyore year. And so it wasn't long after I met Jay, and I guess it was 2015, I suppose, 2015, I guess. Late 2014, early 2015. And I was really, hey, Laura, I was really struggling. And I call it the Eeyore year because I was moping around going, "Hi, it's me." Like, I was really stuck. I was depressed. I was anxious. I was fearful. I'd taken a major confidence hit. Like, I was really in a bad place and really doubtful. And so Jay was one of those guys. It was a couple people, Jay primarily. I'd phone him up sometimes almost every day in the beginning of the Eeyore year. And he would just listen, and we would talk, and he'd feedback some things he heard, but he's just such a beautiful guy, and he would just listen. But that was the beginning. And I was searching for something that was missing. Now, at the time, what I was doing was I was searching. I'd done this my whole life. I was searching in relationships for to make myself feel better. And I always felt like something was missing. And then I realized what was missing was actually, it was God was missing. And so tonight's show is called Something God Said. Or actually it's called What's on God's Mind, Something God Said. And he had said something to me. He said a number of things to me. And when it happened, it really felt like I really felt like God was talking to me. I really felt it. But I didn't really could say that I really knew it, but by definition for me anyway, it was definitely God talking to me. I have no religious background. I went to Sunday school until I was probably 6 or 7 years old. I went to a United Church in Kitchener, Ontario. So this is not about religion. That's not what the show is about at all. But I had like zero experience. Jay said, "Doug, you're like an infant in this." And anyway, that's going back quite a while. Here we are tonight. So I just want to bring Jay on. Let's just start. Let's just dive into it. And as Tyson mentioned, we're going to drop a link into the chat throughout the time we're talking. So again, you can comment on Facebook or YouTube, and we'll pick that up. Aaron is in the green room watching and keeping an eye on all the chatter. Mm-hmm. So let's give Jay some love first. I'll say hello to him, give him a little thumbs up and all that. We're also, we've got that anonymous form now. So some people that say, "Hey, I'd like to submit a question, but I'm not comfortable kind of putting my name on the screen." So that form, that link, just takes you a simple Google form, and all we need is your email address and your question. If you want to put your first name in, if you want to put your full name in, by all means, you can do it that way. And we're also going to drop a link to bring you on live if you want to do that. And I think the best parts of the show so far has been the live interaction with our guests afterwards, like last week with Nure, the week before with Mayor, and Jay's a guy you're going to want to talk to and enjoy talking to because he's a hell of a good guy. So, hey, brother.
Hey, Dougie. How you doing?
Good, man. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on.
I was going to wear my Give Some shirt, but I couldn't put my microphone anywhere, so I better maybe dress
okay. No,
dress
that's
up
okay.
for you, How are you?
You look good in purple. Yeah, I'm good. I'm good.
Actually, it's blue, but comes off purple.
No, I mean in the hoodie.
Oh, in the yeah. So the hoodie is Jay started a business and a mission and a company called Give Some, and that was sort of one of the first conversations that we had. I remember when we first. I remember being at your house for the first time. Of course, I'll never forget that. I think we talk about that all the time. There was what was it? We were sitting down having a coffee. This was after we had met. We said, let's get together and have a coffee. And you poured out what you wanted to do. And there was this give some idea, this idea to change the face of charity and fundraising and helping people. And I remember I wept at that coffee because I was so emotional with what you wanted to do. And I remember the do one thing story. You told that story. I said, just do one thing, just to send an email, make a phone call, reach out to somebody, tell the story, just do one thing. And you did. And anyway, the Give Some story is a great story, and that's another story. But tonight we want to talk about what's on God's mind. There's something he said. So I guess I just got a bunch of questions. I'm trying to get us started. This is going to be a conversation more than it's not an interview. But the first thing I wrote down was, I don't know if you heard in the green room, but I'm nervous and I'm excited about tonight.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember you, one of the most uncomfortable times, we're sitting at a pancake house. So Jay and I used to go for pancakes in the morning, and he started to mentor me on my relationship with God and kind of opening up some doors for me and explaining things. And I remember you said to me, Doug, you really got this whole mindset thing figured out. Like, you're really good at it. If you knew what I knew about God and having a relationship with God, oh man, you put those two together, like, it'll be really great. And you planted that seed in my mind. You said, I see you doing that. And then, of course, the breakfast ended. Jay and I hold hands, and he prays for me. Man, my palms are sweating. This guy always wanted to pray for me. I go, what the hell are we doing? I was so uncomfortable. So, what is it that you saw or wanted me to see back then when we first started talking about God and this relationship that you were introducing me to?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I heard what you said in the green room, and I am amazed and proud of you that here we are, how many years later, and you're actually talking about this subject as like on your own show. So how far we've come, hey? Yeah, I just, what I saw in you, and alluding back to those conversations we had, I saw the heart you had for people. I saw how I just felt like you had been given a gift, not just for people, but to be able to see people for who they are and really had a heart to move them forward. And I just saw this tremendous gifting in you and this wisdom around stuff that I wanted to learn. And as you're teaching me, I think that comment came from, man, a lot of what you'd say, you would think that you did have a relationship in some way with God. And I remember making that comment saying, man, if you could just marry the wisdom and the heart that you have for people with a deeper understanding of what I think is the bigger picture that's happening out here, I think God could work through you in incredible ways. And in fact, I thought he already was. And it's just more of you starting to come to, a deeper understanding of that and more of a personal relationship in some way. So yeah, I remember saying, you didn't say this at the beginning, but I remember before his Eeyore years, he spent about a year telling me what to do, and wouldn't stop telling in emails and phone calls and everything, text messages, are you doing this? So I basically was mentored by you for a year. And then I remember at that breakfast, this is the pre-pancake breakfast, but where I just said, hey, I just finished a year where I did everything you said. How about we go into a year where you do everything I said?
I remember that now. Yeah.
And it's coming out of my mouth, and I'm like, there's no way he's going to say yes to this. And you're like, yeah, sure, let's go. And I was like, wow. And that kicked off that year of, okay, let's just, and I'll say for anyone listening, I am not the world expert on this subject by any means, but I'm was a little at that point further along the journey in some ways, but just felt a heart for wanting to wanted to explore that with you and see where that went for you. So
I remember so another friend that Jay and I both know, Pete. So Pete was a guy that hung out at Starbucks, and in my Eeyore years, I'd walk in there and go, "Hi, Pete." "Hi, Doug. How you doing?" "I'm fine, Pete." And Pete was a guy, or is a guy that, in the beginning, like he was a beautiful guy. He is a beautiful guy, and he'd be a great listener. And then he'd just kind of look at me with his calm smile, and then he'd feed back scripture to me. And I go, "This guy's driving me crazy," And but I didn't realize what he was doing at the time. And what he was doing was he was ministering to me, and he was pointing me in different directions. And I'll just never forget some of those times, because there's things that I do recall. I was talking to a guy today. I don't know if I ever told you this, Jay, but I was talking to a guy today, and I said, I remember my confession night. Did I tell you about the confession with Pete? Did I ever tell you that? I don't know if I did.
it's not ringing a bell.
So Pete and I would go for dinner at the Bread Bar, and we just had these great conversations. And he was a kind man, and we just got along. We talked business, we talked life, and and then of course he said, "Bring your phone, Doug, and get the Bible app out." I mean, oh my God, the Bible app! And he would make me read scripture over dinner. And it was, like when you were praying for me, that was uncomfortable. Then Pete's doing this. Anyway, one night I said, "I need to confess." He said, "Okay." And we sat in his truck. I was saying to this guy earlier, I was talking to, we sat in the truck. It was about 10 o'clock at night. The restaurant closed. And I knew I had some things I needed to confess. And I think I was confessing to God, but Pete was the guy who was doing it through. Well, we sat in his truck on a cold winter night for an hour and a half, and I was just dead silent. I couldn't even muster up the words. I was frozen. I was disconnected. I was detached. And I'm thinking, this confession's got to be emotional. I wasn't feeling a thing. And then Pete just sat there. We just both stared for an hour and a half. And finally, I told him in a very mechanical way, very unemotional way. And that's how uncomfortable I was, with this whole thing, Just before we go on here, well, maybe I'll come a little bit later. So what do you think is on God's mind? I mean, if you think about, and let's use the context of our relationship and our experiences together as friends and the conversations we had and stuff, and this topic, like Jay, what I love about Jay is he's very impeccable. He said, "All right, okay, what do you want to do with this show? Like, what do you want tonight to be about?" And I admire you for that. So, and I do want to talk about that. But what do you think is on God's mind?
Well, I'm not going to pretend to know, topically what's on his mind. I think, in some of the preparation, some of the earlier conversations we had the past week or so, I'll stick with what I told you the first time, sort of off camera. I think what I know is one thing I know is on God's mind is us. I think we are on his mind. We're always on his mind. I think he's to me, he's not a distant God. I think he's a God that's here, that is involved, that is watching us, around us, and loves us. And so I think we're probably his main priority. And in everything that I've experienced and what I've learned, it's him continually revealing himself to us, nudging us forward, helping us face fears, helping us walk better in faith. I think he's given us gifts. I think I've mentioned that to you many times. I saw particular gifts in you very early on. And I think in some ways there's certain skills that we cultivate just through practice and learning. I think there's other gifts that are more spiritual in nature that he gives us and that he gives us opportunity to use. And so I think it's about, us growing in faith, us learning more about him, us learning to love like he loves. And so I don't know if that's cheating, but I think we are on his mind always and often.
That's good. I'm just reflecting on all these memories I have since we started this, and I think about where I was at and how I was feeling and what I was struggling with. And I remember at first, when I first got into this work, I thought, I'm the only one struggling. Everybody else has got their shit together, and it's just me that's screwed up. And then I started talking to people, and as I opened up my heart and told my story, I'm very, very open. That opened the door for others, or invited others in to feel comfortable enough to, share what they've been through or what they're struggling with. And so I now know emphatically that people are really struggling with a lot of things. And I think they're struggling with this idea of a relationship with God. And when you said a relationship with God, I go, I gotta know what the hell you were talking about.
Yeah, how is that possible?
Yeah, so let's talk about that. Just explain, how is that possible? How do you have a relationship with God? Because you said start a relationship with God. I didn't think I had a relationship with God. I do now, but I didn't even know what the hell that meant. Like, what does that mean?
Well, I think one of the things I said to you first was, I don't think if you think it starts, it's not going to start now. I said, I think he's been there all along. And I think if you take the time to reflect back in, maybe those softer moments, or those moments where you needed someone or something. And I've shared this with other people in their sort of early journeys and kind of discovering God is, I want you to think back and even pray, even if you don't fully believe that he's a God that listens, just pray and say, hey, if you have been there in my life, as I look back, show me where you've been, show me the times where you've revealed yourself, show me the times where you've spoken to me, or where you've moved in someone to reach out to me. And honestly, I've never done that with someone where they haven't come back going, oh my goodness, what he has shown me. So I think, certainly it's not a relationship that, that we're used to, where, you and I go out for coffee or dinner, or, walks or things like that, where it's very physical and, you can see. But I think there's other elements of the relationship that can be there. And I think, in a relationship, there's talking. I think one of the things is we think it's just one way. We maybe say prayers, tell him everything we need and everything we want, and amen. And, I think there's another piece of that where we stop and we listen, and where we let him talk, and where we allow conversation to happen. And maybe times there's that audible voice. I don't know. That's not typically how he chooses to speak to me. For me, it's often something he says internally that is pretty clear that, okay, that's not my voice saying that, or it's through other people that I'm journeying with, or that God just chooses to bring into my life for a moment in time, to say something or to challenge me. And then sometimes it's not even in the moment I realize it, but in reflection, it's like, okay, wow, there's no way that person could have known to say that in that moment. And then realizing, wow, God's really at work. And I don't know if you'd planned on sharing it, but one of the things that you came back and said, I know one of those times is when you were in the restaurant and this woman kept looking at you, and eventually she came over and dropped a note to you. And, you were pretty emotional sharing that, but that was a time kind of pre us where you thought back and was like, okay, that was God working there. So yeah, I think if you can get over the element of having a relationship with someone that you can't physically see, then I think the other elements of a relationship can be there, and I'm a big nature guy. I feel like I shrivel up if I stay inside. And I think part of the reason I love going outside is I see him all around there. I'm not seeing him in person, bodily form, but I'm seeing him in all I believe he created. And it's beautiful. And that's where I feel close. And so anyways, I'm rambling now, but is that?
Well, I was smiling because I was thinking about the red Corvette story.
Yeah.
So I'm starting this relationship with God, and Jay's, guiding me on ways to talk to God and ways to listen, and he said God will talk to you through other people, through Scripture, maybe if you go to church, etc. So I'm doing all these things. I'm going to church, and I'm having conversations, and then of course I was reading I use the Bible app every day, and every day there's a little story and there's a little there's a piece of scripture, there's a little devotional or story, and then there's a little video where somebody explains the scripture of the day, etc. And today was, ironically, was about, well, not ironically, perfectly, because God does give you messages many times different ways. And today was about how to talk to God, and how to listen. And anyway, so I'm starting this relationship, and we're talking, and I'm very frustrated. I'm going, Jay, I don't think he's listening. I think this is bullshit. I wanted to believe, I wanted this relationship that, and Jay, you weren't really, you weren't telling me the way it was going to be. It was not about a religion, nothing. It was just basically, there's somebody I want you to get to know.
Yeah, exactly.
Get to know him my way. And just like I would never tell you how to get to know your friend Joe or whatever. And so, so I'm doing all this, but I'm frustrated as hell because I'm thinking, this isn't working. I don't see anything. So I'm in LA at an event, and I really felt in a moment, I got an idea. It's like whoosh, this download, this buzz, and I just go, and it was all around this very thing, and also helping young people. I wanted to have this online thing to help young people. And I said, God, if I'm on the right track, show me a red Corvette. So I go out to the front of the hotel, and during all the breaks, all weekend long, I'm looking for the red Corvette. So that's, Jay knows the red Corvette story, And I was looking for these signs, that he was there. And as you mentioned, I've had these times where I really felt it was God talking to me, but this was before I had this relationship. And this letter I got was literally a woman came up to me at this restaurant. She was, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt and bug you with having a coffee with a friend. And she said, I was over there at the counter checking, I saw you, and God told me to write you this letter. And she goes, you're probably going to think I'm out to lunch. I don't want anything from you. I'm just supposed to give it to you. And so she did, and she took her coffee, and she left. And it was on the back of a pharmacy notepad or whatever it was. I'm looking at it, and I read it, and that I definitely knew it was God talking to me, because a couple of the sentences in the note was exactly what I had been saying to myself that God had said, and then I get it in this note, And so I've had all these experiences, and so why do you think? I know my answer now, but why do you think people struggle so much with this idea of a relationship with God, or the feeling? I had this feeling that I was looking for. I felt like something was missing my whole life. And as I went through my life, different things happened, and I just kept looking and looking and looking. And something was still missing, And then all of a sudden I found it, and it was God was already in me, and but so many people are so resistant to it. But I really truly believe everybody feels the feeling that I felt to some degree or another. It might be pulling on you stronger at times. It might, die down at times. But why do people struggle with this so much, you think?
I don't know if there's one answer. I think a couple things as you asked that. By the way, this is not pre-rehearsed. You didn't tell me all the questions you were going to ask. So this is all spur of the moment.
Try to keep up, Jay.
Yeah. Two things come to mind. One is I think faith in general is not a simple thing. It's, faith in anything is not a piece of cake, right? I think part of what you taught me in that year, and what I'm still learning around, thinking in results and things like that, is that, that element of faith is, takes time, and it takes faith. And so, I think, and in some ways it's hard for us to put trust in something outside of ourselves. We want to, that becomes a scary thing if we allow the idea that someone else might be out there and that person might be in control, and that we might need to let them have that control. That's not an easy thing, to believe that is true, and then also to give over that control and to have surrender. And I think so that's a journey in and of itself, and often it takes baby steps, and sometimes it takes some pretty powerful, sudden experiences that draw us in and make us realize we can trust, and then kind of kickstart that journey. I think for people that like you, I didn't know that you went to Sunday school till you were 6 or 7. You never shared that with me. But I think for some people that may have grown up in some way around the church, I think there are some misconceptions, I think, about God, that we may have, as kids, been taught that he is more about judgment than about love, or, more harsh than he is, caring and gracious and loving, and or that mixture. And so we sometimes in what we've learned, we go, I don't really want that, and I'm not interested in that. But, I think that's why I love you say this isn't about religion. This is about him and a relationship. And so I think that what makes it easier to draw in and have that faith is when you realize he loves us. In fact, he is love. It teaches he is love. So yeah, I think it could be a mix of misunderstanding about him that we need to weed out. I think some of it is just that journey we need to take. As human beings, it's not always easy to put our trust in something outside of ourselves, especially something we can't physically see.
Yeah.
But I think what you find, and you showed this to me as you were going through your journey, that, in an early days where you were like terrified just to pray, and then months later, I'm listening to you pray like beautiful but very simple prayers. And then just watching that progress is just like, man, if we just take some steps and just say, okay, I am still not sure, but I at least acknowledge there may be the chance that you're out there, and maybe the chance that you do love me. If so, show me, and then just start walking. Sometimes, like you said, I always share this in the business sense, but one of the best pieces of advice you gave to me, like you shared early in the show, is just do one thing. I don't know what to do, Doug. I got this vision. I know I need to do this, but I don't know what to do. And you're like, just wake up and do one thing. I think that's the same in the spiritual sense too, is what's the one thing that we can do that could move us one step closer? What's one thing that would be an act of faith that we could take that would put us in a position to be able to see whether or not he is there, whether or not he does love us, whether or not he does catch us. And I think that's an important thing. It doesn't need to be jumping from where we're at now to being, the experts and knowing everything. There's a journey.
Yeah. Man, we could talk all night. There's a couple of things I want to point out before we start to bring people on if they want to ask questions and stuff. It'll be interesting. I'm interested to see on this subject how many people are actually willing to chime in, because the subject's like money. People don't like to talk about money. They're very comfortable with money, They'll throw some comments in the chat, and they'll put in their 2 cents and all that stuff. But it's one of those topics. I think one of the best things that ever happened for me was, and it was 2 things. One is one of the first books you gave me was written by the leader of the first church I went to regularly. It's called the Meeting House. Bruxy is his name. And the book was called The End of Religion. And so the idea was to not come at this from a religious perspective, but from a relationship with God. And in his case, it's Christian and getting to know Jesus Christ and that whole story. And then you said, Doug, like, the good news is you're an infant, like, you know nothing about this. And so luckily for me, although, all I remember from Sunday school is, the Bible study and, the animated book and stuff.
Yeah.
And so I had no religion, which is great. And I'm very grateful that I don't have any religion, because it hasn't tainted or distorted or gotten in the way of my relationship that I'm developing, And so that I'm grateful for. I said to Jay on our walk, I've said this a couple times, that I now really truly believe that if you don't believe in God, you're either ignorant, you're angry, or you're hurt, or there's something going on that's getting in your way. Because I now know, and it was interesting because I'm studying all this information from a mindset perspective. I'm like everything, the primary books I studied, Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich, The Science of Getting Rich by Wallace Wattles, listening to Bob, and Bob and I have gotten to know each other, become friends, and he's shared, his relationship with God, his perspective and his experience, et cetera, et cetera. And they're all pointing, all these personal development books, all these mindset books were all pointing back to God. Like the evidence, it's just like it's right there in front of me. And the more I looked for the truth, the more I could see them pointing me back to God in the books and the things that I was studying. And I'll never forget it. It was a couple of years, 3 Christmases ago, maybe 3. I'm home alone. I'm feeling sorry for myself because I'm home alone, and my daughter Eden, her mom and I split, and she's with her mom on Christmas Eve. And I watched the movie Son of God, and Jesus' life, his birth, and his journey, and his crucifixion. And at the end of it, I was weeping. Like I felt like I lost my brother. I really, literally, and the actor was so good that I fell in love with Jesus in the movie, and it was just. It wasn't a character. I really, that was where the relationship started for me, in a really big way. That was a profound change. And there was a couple other films that I really relate to movies. And so I really just believe that if you don't believe in God, it just means you lack the understanding, the awareness. You haven't really gone down that road, or you're pissed off or angry or hurt, or something's going on that you just are resisting it. But I want to encourage you, like I always say, follow the feeling. The way in what we teach is that it's your intuition that gives you the ability to communicate with God and God to communicate back with you. I remember, Jade, just to wrap up before you get into some questions, I have one more question for you. I remember driving along and I was testing my intuition. I thought about you. And actually I thought about Heather, a friend of ours. Then I thought about you. I called you both. And you called me back shortly after. I said, I was just thinking about you. And you said, well, Doug, it's funny because I was walking through the forest and I was praying for you. I go, shit. I go, what time was that? And it was at 8:05 or whatever time it was that you walked Jackson to school. And that the moment I called Jay, he didn't answer the phone, was the moment he was praying for me. And I go, okay, all these things are starting to line up. So before we get in, and I'm sure we'll talk more through the questions if you have questions.
Yeah.
So where do you start if you have the feeling that I had? Like, what do you tell people? I got this feeling, Jay. What do I do?
As the person that is, how do you mean, Doug? Sorry.
Well, so I think in my opinion, I think there's a lot of people that are like me that have a pull, have a feeling, have a desire, are searching for something. I think that something is God. Same thing I was looking for. Like, what do you tell those people if they're, because I was very nervous. I couldn't even say the word God. I mean, people go, do you believe in God? Well, I'm spiritual, I was even so uncomfortable even saying it. Like, what do you tell people? Like, you got 60 seconds. What's your advice?
Yeah, it's not a 60-second answer. I think for when I have been asked that question, it's been from a person that there's been some sort of relationship with or some knowledge of, and so the answer is not the same every time. I'll usually try to find some sort of common ground to make it not feel like this is so out there. And so look for some sort of connection. Hey, like ask questions. I ask a lot of questions, what do you currently think about God? What is it about God that, like you said, that you're either afraid of or that you're drawn to? What is it you want to understand better? I think it's important to find out where that person is along sort of that spectrum. Are they running from the idea of God and they need to be shown that you can actually trust him? Because then you kind of start there. Is it, someone's really hurt and they need to be shown that he cares and that he can offer healing in that hurt, and then start there. Is it just a million questions? I had a guy come to me, he goes, I do think there is some sort of God, but I have millions of questions that can you help me with? I go, I can try. And it just started there with just trying to answer question after question after question until we found some sort of, he goes, yeah, that makes sense. And it was around, that's a whole other topic, and then we just explored it from there. So I think when you ask questions and when you have someone dig into why they're looking, I think that really advances it. That brings the person to a place, where it's like, okay, I don't feel like I have miles and miles and miles to go. I feel like I can start to take that journey now, and I think that's what he invites us to. He's there saying, you don't need to jump over all these hoops and run through all these hurdles and do all of these things in order to have a relationship with me. You can choose to have that now, and I'll start responding to you now, and we can start walking together now. And so it's not a complicated thing. I think there's just a need to make that connection, make that personal with the person. Then you start walking. So for me, and maybe there's probably a better answer than that. For me, I don't have like a one size fits all answer, but
no, I think the answer is on your heart is a good answer for a lot of people. I'm just thinking about tonight again. It's almost like there's this unraveling through relationship and revelations and transformation. I remember one of the experience where I thought God was talking to me. I was in this guided meditation with somebody, and in the meditation, I couldn't tell this story to anybody. It took me a year to tell one person. But in that guided meditation, God's walking down the beach, and we run into each other, and he said, Doug, I'm going to help you change the world with your voice and your words. And I'm going, yeah, whatever, right? But I really believed it was true. He was talking to me, but I couldn't get it. I just could not adjust to that idea that come on, like don't tell anybody, Doug, you're out to frickin' watch. And then, but what's interesting, and I changed it because it's now in my affirmations. But as I transformed it, I actually changed it. I want to change the world. I'm going to change the world with my voice and his words. And that just these little things, And the other thing I want to tell you is if you need to be forgiven, this is the best way to be forgiven. Because when I started to study the story and the scripture and the Bible and everything like that, and I didn't know what the difference between the Old Testament was and the New Testament. I just thought one was an older book. I didn't know what the hell that was. And so, I discovered that the New Testament, the Old Covenant's out, the New Testament's in, and you're all forgiven. And I go, great, because so as I really started to understand, I go, and I remind myself every day that I am forgiven. I still make mistakes and do things I don't want to do, but I am constantly forgiving myself, and I'm a better person because God's forgiven me. Therefore, I can forgive myself, or I can accept His forgiveness, and that's been a real transformation. So, well, listen,
can I share one thing quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, just this. I hadn't thought of this pre-call, but just in something, it's been coming up. So this is just one quick personal story. 2 summers, and I probably told you this, Doug, but 2 summers ago, I was at my parents' cottage up in Muskoka, and I'm not a morning person. I'm trying to become more of a morning person. I'm not a morning person, but I love in the mornings in the summer on the lake when the kind of mist is coming up, and I love being outside. So I set my alarm clock. I actually woke up. I got down. No one was on the dock. I went down there, and I brought this book by Bob Goff. By the way, that's a great book too. Any of his books, but so anyway, I'm reading. I'm on some chapter, and then not audibly, not like crazy like what you see in the movies or anything, but I just felt God say, "Do you trust me?" And I just kind of closed the book, and I'm like, "What was that?" And I said, "Yeah, I trust you." And he said, "Get in the lake." Not audibly, just get in the lake, Jay. And I was going to use the excuse, well, I just have my clothes and I looked down and I actually put on my bathing suit when I came down. So actually, I didn't even have an excuse other than the water would be cold because it was early morning. But so I said, okay, I trust you, and so I took my shirt off, and I didn't want to jump in the lake and wake everyone up and be like, what's Jay doing swimming right now? So I just kind of quietly slipped in, and I just felt like, okay, I need to swim across the lake. Now, you've been there. It's not a super wide lake. It's a bit of a trek to get across, but I just start swimming across the whole time going, is this right? Am I supposed to be in the water swimming across this lake right now? Like, is this really you, God? And so I get, halfway across, And it's the first time since I got in the lake that I felt, and God just said, okay, stop. And so I just stopped, and I'm treading water. I'm just a head out of water in this big body of water. And he says to me, how big do you feel now in this lake? And I just did a full 360, looking at this whole lake with just my head above water. And I'm like, I am nothing. I am like, this might as well be like the Atlantic Ocean. Like this, my head is nothing compared to the size of this lake. And then he says something that I'll never forget, that I think is the reason I'm sharing, because this is his default stance towards us. He said, Jay, this water represents my love for you. And I realized that the size that I felt I was nothing in comparison to this massive body of water. And he says, that's my love for you. And even for someone that, had grown up in the church and have had a relationship with him for so long, man, that reminder was so powerful. And I just broke. And then I've never been so overjoyed. And so I didn't want to scream and wake everyone up with the echoes, but I just dove down underwater. I'm just screaming my head off just to let this all out. Just like, oh my goodness, God loves us this much. It wasn't just you, Jay. It was, this is how much I love you. You're nothing compared to how much I love you. And it was just a beautiful, perfect reminder at the right time where I needed to remember that, again, we often think of God coming with a whole bunch of do's and don'ts and a whole bunch of regulations. And I don't know if I want to enter that. And, and I think when we realize, no, his default towards us is he loves us. His default, like you just said, towards us is I forgive you. And in me, you'll find forgiveness. It's not, I don't hold those things over you if you come to me. And so it's just a beautiful picture for even someone that has known him for a while that I need reminding of. I think we all need reminding of that once in a while.
Yeah, well, that's so good.
That was the same lake that you tried to get in that kayak and flipped upside down in. Remember that?
I'm not going to tell the kayak story.
Anyway.
All right, Tyson, we got about 10 minutes here. Have we got anybody with questions and that we want to bring on? Where are we at?
Yes, we have a few anonymous questions
Okay.
that I want to get to, and then there's some in the chat.
Okay.
But so the first one of the anonymous questions was someone that came on the show, and she just wanted to ask. I'm just gonna put up as a banner really quickly, right here. So my question is I believe in God and I feel I have a good personal relationship with him. However, I suffer from depression and anxiety for most of my life. How do I let go and let God? And there's a little bit extra to the question to make a little more.
That's good though.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, Jay, but I want to jump all over that one.
Oh, I was going to say this is a you answer for sure.
Well, listen. So I suffered from anxiety, depression for a long, long, long time. And there was a lot of anxiousness and depression going through this relationship with God. I was going to grab it, Jay. I was going to have the book in front of me. I was reading a book called Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill. And Jay says, you got to read the Screw Tape Letters. And so here's my answer to this. I think that number one is I would, and this isn't directed at just the person asking the question, this is for everybody. I would ask the question, are we talking about a relationship with God? Or are we talking about religion? So I would take religion out of it completely, because I think, in my opinion, I think that religion can definitely put some pressure on you. I remember reading the book by Neil Donald Walsh, Conversation with God. He said, a couple things God wants to know. He doesn't want anything from you, and he doesn't need anything from you. And so I would take the religion out of the conversation or the question. And this notion of the Screw Tape Letters, what I discovered is that this brings sort of mindset and theology or science and theology or God and you together. Your ego is at play. I call it your false self, your mistaken identity. If you're talking from a spiritual perspective, it's the enemy. I remember Jay, he mentioned the enemies. I don't want to scare you, Doug, but he mentioned this enemy thing. Okay, I'm not scared, but maybe I would have been scared. Anyway, this book called The Screw Tape Letters was by C.S. Lewis, the Narnia movies. And Uncle Screwtape is a demon that works for the devil. and he writes letters to his nephew Wormwood, and he's mentoring Wormwood, who's another demon, on how to keep the patient, the human, away from God, away from relationship with God and what God wants. And so I believe there's a couple things going on for people, at least for me anyway, is that people are locked in an emotional prison of anxiety and depression because they're walking around with a false image of who they really are. You were created in God's image, but you were brought up and you were programmed and raised to believe certain things about you. You were programmed. It wasn't even your programming. It was the parents that programmed you, and you had all these experiences, and it created a real disconnect in you, the essence of who you really are. And I think at the same time, from a spiritual perspective, your ego, the enemy, the false self, is constantly trying to keep you away from who you are, what you want to do, who you want to be. It kept me away from this show. For Tyson 2 years ago had this idea and a similar idea. Anyway, so I think you got to take religion out of it. And you really have to understand what actually causes anxiety and depression. That's the other thing I found out. Very few people understand the true cause of anxiety and depression. For most people, it's what's going on inside that's just not true. You think it's true. You believe it's true. You'll fight me all day long telling me it's true, but it's not. And you only believe it because it was handed to you and adopted by you. And so I think that's what you got to take a look at, because Jay's would be better on the last part for me. But I think if I'm creating God's image and God is in me and God just loves me as I am, where I am and where I'm going, and wants me and has a plan for me, if I trust in that, I have nothing to be anxious or depressed about. One more thing, Jay, if you want, and I want you to chime in. One thing that kept coming up in the Jesus Calling devotionals and everything I've been reading, in that Jesus Calling book, it's Jesus talking to me every day. And he's saying, stay here in the moment. Don't worry about your future. All the scriptures, all the devotionals, all the Bible plans are all saying, stop worrying about the future. And that's the cause of anxiety and depression. You're worried about something that hasn't happened yet. What do you think, Jay?
Yeah, I think the first thing that came to mind, there's a verse that says, be anxious about nothing, but in everything through prayer and petition, make your requests known to God. I think it's a verse that invites him into the equation. I think I'm not an expert on anxiety and depression by any means, but I know that often when I'm struggling with something or I'm facing something that is not easy to go through, it's easy for us as humans to feel like I got to figure this out on my own. And then I can come back and have a good relationship with God, or this is on me to figure out. And it's not. I mean, that verse is God inviting him, like, bring me into this, bring whatever you're anxious about, bring it to me. And so, the last part, how do I let go and let God? I think it's not by doing it on your own. There's likely a community element. I need people around me, praying for me, supporting me. I need people that I can be honest about, that I can be real with. But it's also why not invite him into it and admit, hey, I'm anxious and I'm depressed. There's certain things I'm struggling with. Can you help me in dealing with those? And I think the God that I know is bigger than these things and is able to support in many ways. And so, and again, that's why I thought it was a great one for you, because even though, anyway, actually, I won't open that door. We won't have time for any other questions. So.
Well, yeah, just real quick on the end here. Let go, let God. You can't let God unless you let go. But God's not going to step in unless you let go. And so letting go simply means, so I would make up your mind, make a decision right now. This is the turning point for you. Decide right now, I am done looking backwards, and I'm done worrying about my future. I'm going to live in 24-hour blocks. That's letting go. And then let God show you what you need to do an hour from now, tonight, tomorrow morning. And those are just a rule you make up, a decision and a rule. And if you follow that, even for give God 30 days where you just let go. Number one, you'll feel better because you'll not be worried. Anxiety is going to slip away. Depression will slip away fairly quickly. So that would be my advice. Another one, Tyson?
Yes, and it's another anonymous, actually.
I love the anonymous idea. We got that going now.
Yeah, it's super cool. You know, even though this is a safe space, again, to remind everybody, it's a very safe space, as Doug's mentioned. But the question is, it's kind of more of a comment, and then it goes into a question.
Okay.
I think you can struggle to have a relationship with God if you've never felt that God has listened to your prayers, and it makes it feel like He has let you down. What do you do after that? I'm gonna put it on the screen right now.
Jay, we got basically 4 minutes, so let's see how succinct we can be and try to answer this one.
Well, I would first, again, this is hard in one end, like it'd be easier in a conversation with whoever is asking this to be able to ask a bunch of questions first. I would say I would answer that with another question. What's making you feel like He's not answering or that He's not listening? Part of not believing He's not listening is not believing what He's told us, which is that He is listening. So part of it is not trusting that what He says is true. That's a piece of it. Another is, like your red Corvette. That was the one thing. You didn't finish that story. You never saw the red Corvette. It was you trying to force an answer in a certain way, and God saying, whoa, who's God here? I don't do what you say, Doug. This is a journey here, and there's a journey of faith. So part of it is, are you answering God, and am I just not listening? Or also praying, God, give me the ears to hear. And I think maybe that person is listening for an answer in a very specific way, and almost forcing it to happen a certain way. There's many ways that God gives answers. A lot of the time, the vast majority of the time, is through people. Is through Him leading others to share with us or open up with us or say something to us that we may realize in the moment, or we may realize after. Wow, okay, that actually helps answer that question that I've been asking, or that thing that I've been praying about. So, ask yourself what is causing you to not think He's answering, and then ask yourself, am I actually listening in all the ways that He could be answering? And then just simply praying those, like another sentence prayer, that's, God, give me ears to hear. Give me ears to hear what you're saying to me. Maybe you're looking for a particular answer, and He's answering you, but it's not the answer you want. And so you're saying, well, that's not the answer. What's your answer? And so I don't know, there's a number of things, but I do believe that He does listen. I don't ever believe He's not listening. And I do believe He does answer all the time. And that we just need to continue to walk that faith and believe that He will be answering, and look for the different ways that He is, and bring others around you. Draw close to someone or others that have, maybe a stronger relationship, and open up to them and say, well, what would you say? Can you journey with me on this? So.
Yeah. I think the key is back to letting. I think we've been brought up to live, from our intellect and our five senses, and we want to control things. And that's a way of staying safe and secure. It's like your ego. Your ego does not want you to change because it defines itself based on your past. Mm-hmm. And anytime you go to change, and it doesn't know where you're going, it's threatened. And so from an ego perspective, from a mindset perspective, it'll really screw with you. And so you really, again, it's letting. I was thinking about an article called The Effortless Way, and the author says, creation is finished, and you're just living into things. And so true letting is just making an agreement, making it, all right, tell you what. And that's what I did. I made my own agreement with the guy. I had a conversation. Listen, all right, I'm going to just listen every day. I'm going to ask, and I'm going to listen. Ask, I'm going to listen. And I pray and talk every day more than I ever have. And does He answer back all the time? No, but He does answer back when I need it and where I need it, and keeps pointing me in the right direction. So, and I wish we should have probably scheduled a 2-hour show, but next week is an open mic show. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to talk more about this and bridge into self-image and anxiety and depression and all the stuff that people are struggling about. So that's just basically a wide open show next week. So if you enjoyed this tonight, if you're on YouTube and you're watching, hit the subscribe button. We'll notify every Thursday, 8 o'clock. If you enjoyed the show, if you're still on, hit the share button. Please share it with people. Anything here resonated, tell people to watch it. Tell them why they should watch it. Share it with them. And if you want to talk to me, then just go to my website, dougdane.com, and you can meet me there. Jay, I want to thank you. I wish we had all night to do this because we could do this all night.
It's went so fast. I know.
I can't believe how fast it goes.
I know.
And there's so much to say here. I think I'd love to have you back again, and we'll keep carrying on. I mean, Jay and I are very close. We're working very close together on a lot of things. Before we go, I know we're a little bit late, so bear with us, folks. Tell us about your project.
Yeah, we're 3 weeks in. So just very quickly, I launched something called the Generosity Journey. So it's on Instagram. It's only on Instagram at the Generosity Journey, and it is just the title is "A Guy on a Journey." I'm just trying to figure out how to weave generosity more into our day-to-day lives, and generosity is something to do with the job that I have. Which is phenomenal. But I think, in many ways, I'm still just an infant learning more about generosity. And I know the default is to think generosity is giving. And if we're not giving a lot of money to something, we're not being generous. And so this is just, the Generosity Journey is a series of 52 week-long challenges that I'm throwing out every Sunday afternoon that we can start on Monday. And for 7 days, just take on the challenge. And so far this year, we've done 3. We started January 1st. And the first one, just to show you how easy it is, and this is for everybody, you don't need to be a generosity expert to join. The first challenge was saying hello to everyone you passed that week and trying to create a habit of not just looking and thinking about or worrying about ourselves, but acknowledging and seeing others in our life. Because I think that is the first step towards generosity, is seeing other people and being interested in what other people need. So if you want to join. I'll be honest, there's 52 weeks in a year. I have 17 challenges written out. So I'm well shy of the 52 that we need to eventually do. So one of the things I always ask, on that channel is saying, hey, if you have ideas for a new challenge, I'd love to hear it. Also asking for videos. If you take on one of these challenges, 1 week and something happens, or if there's a story you want to share, I would love if you'd record a video that's 60 seconds or less and send it, and I'll post that and we can all encourage each other. So again, it's just a very simple challenges that if we apply, I think will move us towards generosity and what kind of harm is there in becoming a more generous person? So
love it.
There you go.
Love it. Mike Hectus, our friend there, he's promoting like hell.
Hey, Mike.
Way to go, nice. Michael.
That's it right there. Yep.
Too. Listen, I want to thank you, Jay. This continues to be a great road that we're on, and I'm grateful. I admire you. I'm thankful. It's only going to get better. I know that people watching tonight would pick up the same feeling I picked up from you the day I met you. You're a good man, and you're doing good things, and I'm grateful that you were here tonight, and I'm grateful that we're going to keep on carrying on. So thanks for coming on, and thanks for watching, everybody. All right, have a good night. Take care.